Get 5 coffins ready.
Hi everyone, welcome to my guide for Tyr. Tyr is a flexible stance-switching warrior, but is best in the solo lane role, so I'll be focusing on that exclusively in this guide. Tyr focuses on insanely strong clear and sustain while laning, with a super strong fight potential in the early and mid game, eventually being relegated to a CC bot as the game goes on. Build-wise, Tyr is very flexible, the two most viable builds being a fairly simple bruiser build and this insanely annoying but just as effective movement speed build. You can pick between these two builds or spring for something even more damaging. I'd just avoid full damage. Relics wise, you 100% absolutely no questions asked, lifetime guaranteed, need blink. Tyr is not a very good character without it. Second, relics wise, well, you can go into beats to keep yourself safe, but going into a horrific or sprint works well too, for reasons you'll find out later. Actually, why wait? Let's get into Tyr's abilities. Tyr's passive is a simple one. A hard CC inflicted on Tyr is reduced to 1 second of effectiveness. Tyr is a character that gets right up in people's faces and deep into the thick of things, so this simple passive fits him like a glove. Some Gucci shit, you know, high end. Of course, this doesn't affect any knockups or displacement. An easy way to know if an ability is affected by this passive is if the ability makes the white hard CC bar appear above their heads. If the ability produces this bar, Tyr's passive affects it. And just as an aside, DR, which is getting changed again by the way, is a mechanic that lessens the effect of subsequent instances of hard CC. It does still affect CC impacted by this passive, so you can have a 3-second stun that lasts for only like 0.4 seconds. It's pretty crazy. But let's get into why this is so important for Tyr to have. In Tyr's first ability is Red Stance, Tyr dashes forward slowly, pushing back and damaging all enemies hit and knocking them up at the end of the ability. The way it deals damage is interesting. It deals damage twice, once on the first swing and again on the second swing. So as you can see when it's slowed down, the ability pushes for its entire duration, but the damaging portion only happens in quick succession around the middle of the ability's cast time. So it's possible to miss out on damage with this ability. That said, I'm sure you can already guess that the immense push on this ability is the key to its effectiveness. We're not done talking about this ability, but it's important we get straight into how it combos with his second ability in this stance. Tyr's second ability in his red stance is a simple cone AoE in front of him that deals damage. However, if this ability hits an enemy that is in the air, for instance with your first ability, they are knocked away. This is Tyr's main combo and what you want to practice most of all on him, particularly when utilizing Blink for a 180, for a hard to react to and insanely long crowd control and high damaging combo. So first things first with your second ability, I mean it's a big cone in front of your face, just put on instant cast now so you never mess up the timing for a successful push. But if you have to use normal cast for whatever reason, just know that you can prime your second ability while you're dashing so you can get it instantly. Then let's talk about blinking in with this ability and 180ing. All I can say really is practice. Hop into jungle practice and try all sorts of different angles of attack as well as ranges so you can get this just right every time. Try to practice until you can hit 10 in a row at a variety of different angles and distances. The tiers that can hit the max range, odd angle blink pushes are the tiers that everyone fears. Bars. There are a few tips and tricks here too though, although the main combo I just showcased is what you want to do most of the time. If you land yourself too short and end up to the side of someone, you can still push them to the side, reposition yourself to their back as they're pushed away by your first ability, then hit them with your second ability to pop them into your team or closer to your tower. Of course, this is where the movement speed build helps too, letting you reposition yourself extremely quickly on both the initial push and the cleave after it. And I'm sure y'all saw this one coming, basic attack cancels. Yummy. But of course just focus on perfecting the basic blink push cleave and then get fancier as you get more comfortable. But of course Tyr, especially in Conquest, isn't using this combo solely to throw people around, it's also his wave clear. This being not only a dash, but also a potent damaging combo however, means that it's one of the most fearsome but also counterable clears in the game. So let's quickly touch on dash clashes. If you don't remember, dash clashes are when two dashes collide head on, and one dash will take precedence over the other, the one with precedence connecting and dealing damage while the other dash is cancelled entirely. And unfortunately, Tyr loses a lot of these. Instead of just giving you niche explanations, here I've just broken down all the relevant solo lane gods I can think of and slot them into a tier list. Tyr just loses a lot of these since his dash is so slow, and of course the big reason being displacement forms of crowd control like Tyr's push lose to things like stuns and silences in SMITE. That said, you can still of course catch any of these gods off with a combo in their face. Which leads me into another quirk about the dash. The width of the dash is actually wider than Tyr himself, no small feat I know, but this does mean that there's a little wiggle room if you don't land your player model smack dab in front or behind of someone, so be sure to keep this in mind. But okay, how do you choose a good time during laning to go for a push on the wave or holding your push for aggression? Well, there's no good answer since it completely depends on both the player and the god they're playing. The main things you need to keep in mind is A. Can they stop me from clearing the wave with their CC? B. If I use my push and cleave on the wave to clear, can they still clear the wave and outtrade me? And finally C. If I use my push on them, will they simply sustain the damage back up and proceed to clear the wave? So while Tyr's game plan of lane control and harsh combos late game are simple on paper, it really does require you to have a lot of knowledge about your lane opponent to be effective. Some lanes Tyr full clears the wave and backs off, usually against trade-centric characters. Other times he full clears then harasses, usually against those with weak wave clear of their own. Needless to say, to learn how to play Tyr at the highest level, you're going to need good knowledge of your lane opponent's potential, or be prepared to take a couple of L's. Well, not necessarily, as Tyr's blue stance offers him incredible survivability in the mid game. In blue stance, Tyr's first ability is again a dash, sharing the same distance and speed properties as his red stance, but this time knocking back all enemies to the sides of Tyr and only dealing damage once upon contact with an enemy. The cleave as well is very similar, sharing the same size and cast time as his red stance counterpart, but instead of knocking back airborne targets, this form of his cleave heals him for every enemy hit, up to 3 with minions, but you can get more than 3 heals if you hit both a group of minions and a god at the same time. Funny enough, you use this stance in the reverse way you use the red stance abilities. Since the dash itself and the recovery on it are so slow, you can't really capitalize on that dash CC, so you usually do your red stance combo, swap, then cleave, and dash out. Doing the basic attack cancels as you combo if you feel comfortable doing it. The same deal with wave clearing. Red stance combo, blue stance cleave for the sustain, and dash if you need to, but you can keep it in your pocket for safety. Then, if you're a little low on health, you can keep yourself in blue stance between the waves, cleave the melee minions, and then red stance combo the wave. With all that said, let's quickly touch on his stance switch ability with this 3. Of course, activating his stance switch switches his stance, but that's not all. No matter what his current cooldowns are, if Tyr switches into a stance, that stance's abilities are always available to him. Once this ability is leveled, each stance gains a passive, the blue stance giving you additional protections and the red stance giving you physical power. This of course is just a background passive and isn't something you really play around until well into the match, as, spoiler alert, you don't put any levels into this ability until your push and cleave are both max level. Not really any tips or tricks here, just remember to stick in your blue stance while being chased or dove, which you were probably doing anyways. Well, hey, this does give me a good chance to talk about Tyr's hit chain. Tyr swings normally, then quickly for a low damaging basic attack, then swings a final hit that deals massive damage. So while in the early game, you usually only want to do the first hit of this chain while comboing, you can actually manage to slip in 2 hits before swapping stances for a really slick little combo. Of course, again, as I've been saying, if it's in a teamfight situation, just skip this and just focus on getting your CC out there, but during trades and skirmishes, this combo is something you'll want to perfect. Then let's move on to the elephant in the room, that big ass final hit. As I just insinuated, when you're trying to trade, just going through your normal basic attack chain while trading is never optimal. Going into any of your abilities instead of going for this final hit is always the best option, but sometimes you have no choice. In this case, the swing time is actually so long that you can hit the first 2 hits of your chain, back off, and then walk back up to your intended target as the basic attack is coming out, and then canceling the recovery time of that basic attack while going into one of your abilities. Speaking of while trading, once you have some cooldown reduction online, it's totally normal to just use your basic attacks and cleave for short trades, instead saving the push for all ins. Whew, to be honest, there's even more little drips and drabs for Tyr's core kit that we can get into, but I feel like those are the most important mechanics for you to try and practice, and which are most applicable to a wide variety of situations. Let's have a bit of a palate cleanser with Tyr's most straightforward ability, his ultimate. Tyr becomes CC immune and winds up, leaping into the air and smashing down in an absolutely massive AoE, dealing high damage and slowing all enemies hit. And let's get it out of the way now, this ability is the same whether you're in red stance or blue stance, but of course you want to cast it in the red stance if you can for the extra power as you hit the later stages of the game. Generally though, this ability has a wide variety of uses, being a high damaging CC ability with good range. Firstly, it's Tyr's get out of jail free card. If you hadn't already noticed, while he has double dashes, his movement is, shall we say, meh. Yet another advantage to the movement speed build in that regard. That said, of course, this is still a fairly long range leap, but with a long windup. So it's a good escape for when used over walls, but if used straight down a lane, well, a fast assassin or long range mage will still keep up with you. So make sure if you gotta get out, you get out. You can still of course use this aggressively though, and if your blink is down, this is a decent substitute for your combos, but on the whole it still pales in comparison if you have the blink 180 combo down. The slow on this ability does make your combo easier to hit, so while practicing you can place this ability behind your intended target to get an easy push if you're really struggling to do it raw. During trades, it's not bad either as a way to catch an opponent off guard. But just keep in mind that it's one of the easiest abilities to react to in the game, so keep it in the back pocket in this instance until you know they don't have any chance to immune it. And finally, of course, the most common use of this ability is to chase those who have gotten caught by your blink combo, and then once they use their movement ability to get away from you, you chase with this ability as well as your blue stance abilities. And of course, don't forget to lead this ability a little bit, it is pretty slow. I've been mentioning them plenty over the course of this video, but here's a few combos with Tyr. For leveling, you want your 2 at level 1, your 1 at level 2, and from there you max your 2, your 1, and your 3, leveling your ult whenever you can. In other roles like jungle and support, it's better to level the 1 over the 2 for the additional damage. Leveling the 2 is mostly just for the sustain. So that's Tyr. You probably noticed this video is a little different to my other guides, and well, that's because Tyr is different to other gods. Other characters have abilities similar to Tyr, but no god lives and dies by them quite like Tyr does. And since Tyr is so mechanically intensive, it gives me more of a reason to deep dive into the nerdy mechanics of him, since Tyr often boils down to blink 180 push, combo into your blue stance, and chase with an ult. But getting the most out of any character comes from knowing what to do in each and every moment. And with someone like Tyr whose playstyle is very specific to himself, I wanted to focus on the theoreticals a bit more closely this time. That said, I think playing characters like Tyr or like Thoth that we looked at a few weeks ago who play differently from their contemporaries does help you learn other characters more easily, so there's definitely benefit from learning someone like Tyr. And seriously, if you want a safe laning phase with decent mid to late game, there's almost no solo laner quite as safe as Tyr, with that heal and double dash. At least there was. Grievous Wounds is trash. So hopefully you learned something from this guide and have a better time playing Tyr in the solo lane moving forward. That's all I have on Tyr for now. Thanks for watching.